All right, next we have the kind of the parable of you don't take new wine and put it in old wineskins, okay? And you don't take old wine and put it in new wineskins. Basically, that's kind of self-explanatory, but that's his way of saying that lots of times these religious leaders, all they do is they recircle the same knowledge over and over and over again. It's the same old junk. It's the same old wine, but they try to put it in new wineskins. They try to fool you. It's the same old crap, but they put a different cover on the book. It's the same old junk. And as humanity evolves, we're going to need new prophets with new information and new ways of looking at things as we progress through the ages. So there isn't any definitive voice of God. God's voice will come through many different people, many different prophets, many different teachers in every country, in every race, as we go into the future. They liked their wine back in their day, didn't they? A lot of talk with wine and everything. I guess that was basically like grape juice. A lot of times they were drinking a lot of wine. I don't know, when I drink a lot of wine, I get dehydrated. So I try to look at it, especially now that I quit drinking, as it was, they're drinking a lot of grape juice and calling it wine, you know. But anyway, I don't like to drink anymore. However, in the Last Supper, we have the Holy Grail. We have Christ sharing a drink with his disciples, sharing wine with his disciples. Now, basically, what this means is becoming like Christ. It means like sharing the same responsibility of Christ. To share a drink with someone is symbolically you're partaking of the same substance. And the disciples took the responsibility that Christ did. And they took the weight that Christ did. And that was why Judas went nuts. When Judas backstabbed Christ for his little 30 pieces of silver, the demons jumped all over his ass. And he went running around insane. He went back and he threw the silver back at the priests, the Roman priests, and their little Jewish minions. And he said, I don't want it no more. There's demons on me. There's spells on me. It's burning me up. I can't take it. And he threw the money back. They're like, what do you want us to do about it? And so without God watching his back, without the apostles and Christ and good people watching his back, guess what happened? He couldn't take the pain. And he ended up hanging himself. Now, a lot of other people, when they take the way to Christ, when they get put to this test, when they find the Holy Grail and they realize what it is, they can't take the weight either. And they end up dying. And they get taken into this satanic priesthood that hides behind the Vatican, that hides behind the empires throughout the ages. Wherever you hear of empires, you're going to find this group behind them. Whenever you hear of these groups that are running around going nuts, you hear the Persians were going nuts, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Mongols of China, you're going to find demons and Dracs, and they're going crazy. and they get controlled and taken over by these things, and it changes them. And the only way they get relief is to become part of the chaos and become a demon themselves and unleash this pain and terror on other people. So some people who are very weak, they go right along with it, while other, let's just say, knights, they symbolically drink from the Holy Grail. They feel the weight that Christ felt, and they put up a fight for a period of months or a year or a decade. And if they eventually fall, if they eventually give themselves over, they will basically be consumed by the priesthood, by the satanic priesthood. And this is called the mysteries. So that's why you hear about knights finding the Holy Grail, drinking the Holy Grail, becoming like Christ, and then they result in hating God. They hate God afterwards. They become like Christ, and they can't handle it, and so they end up hating God and becoming part of the demon horde. And the Vatican is the cult that takes them in and says, "You're lucky to be alive right now. You're lucky to be alive. This is the only way. This is how it's been running this world since the beginning of time itself on this planet. God is actually a very cruel reptilian creature, a drac or a demon, and you have no strength over them. So you must join us, and the only way we get relief from these dracs and demons is to go torture good people and go throw this pain on good people who also are like Christ, that need to be put to the test. And then you could see them fall and them come back, and them not come back, but then they could fall, and then they come walking over to the cult. And time after time after time, you see everybody joins the cult. The pressure's too much. The pain is too much. They can't endure it. So that's how the Vatican sustains itself. That's how the Vatican gets others to join their ranks. That's how they take over the world, basically. So Christ went around, and he had a lot of this negative energy in him. Like a magnet, these spirits, these negative spirits, these entities hit the target. And usually they build up to such a point that the target is under such pain and stress and anger. Like I said, they go walking over to the Vatican. But what Christ did was he used this like a magnet. He used all this negative energy that was like welling up in him and dragging all these spirits. He would go around and heal people by pulling the negative spirits and the negative energy out of other people. And then he would annihilate this energy through the use of meditation techniques. So he went around healing people. And so when you read the New Testament, Christ went around healing all these people with illnesses, and lots with demon infestations. All these crazy people that were wandering around the desert insane. They were hanging around the crypts insane. Now in the background, it was the Roman priesthood. That's how they take over cultures. They move in, they take control of the region, utilizing this way. And they tell people, they find that just the scumbags that just will do what they're told anyway, and those people are great slaves for them. But then like some of the stronger people that put up a fight, when they break them, it's like, yeah, we broke this guy, we broke this lady, we broke this guy, we broke this lady. Hey, we broke them, we can break anybody. So they set the example that even your strongest join our ranks. So this priesthood is still doing the same thing today. So when you hear about satanic ritual abuse, when you hear about little kids complaining that they got abused or stuck into a coffin, the same thing was happening back in the day. And that's why they ended up crucifying Christ. And it's not exactly how they talk about in the Bible, but they crucified him or they tortured him. And when he finally passed out or fell down, they took him, they threw him in a tomb, and they locked him in a tomb for 3 days. And when you're locked in a tomb by yourself in that darkness, oftentimes the demons will take control of you in there. If you're putting up a fight on the outside, you just keep busy with your work. You keep busy by just walking from place to place, just looking at good people, helping people, just doing your thing. They'll take you and they'll burn you, and then they'll throw you in a coffin or they'll throw you in a tomb somewhere and see how well you'll do there, as they basically induce you into a panic state until you die, basically. And dying is your human spirit leaves you and you become dead. You become one of the walking dead. You become like a vampire. You become one of these cult members. And they're like scared wrong. They're scared evil. So when they get let out, they're like drooling on themselves. They're completely scared. They're like, well, I'll do whatever the cult says. They have died. Their human spirit, their will has died, and the demon has taken over, and they're willing to join the cult of these Satanists, of these Roman Catholics, the CIA. And they say it's better for us to go torture someone else than for us to be stuck in the crypt for however long they're going to stick us in the crypt. But what did Christ do after they stuck him in the crypt for 3 days or a year? They say, and I got to read it to you, I got to quote it. I'm going to read it. But they said, we observe Christ back on the street talking the same way as he talked before. He's out there preaching and talking to everybody. We didn't break him at all. We didn't beat him at all. We crucified him, we burned him, we threw him in a crypt for 3 days. And that's enough to knock anybody out of the war. And here's he's right down back on the streets preaching to everybody some more. He's been reborn. He's born again. So he knew that he was going to be eventually taken into this house, abducted into the Roman Catholic or the Roman Empire's house, where they did their witchcraft on him. He went around preaching to everybody before, and he had support of his family, his wife, his children, his brothers, his sisters, his disciples, his friends. But then at some point, he knew it. They were going to come get him and drag him into the house of the Satanists. The Roman Catholics were going to drag him into their house. And he was surrounded by a lot of negative people. He was pulled in and they tried to overwhelm him by the cult. They surrounded him with zombies, vampires, satanic priests, the worst of the worst, the criminal scum. And that's when you hear that 2 men were crucified on either side of Christ. They were bringing in the worst criminals they could bring in and say, hey, deal with this guy. You think you're tough? Let's see how tough you're around these guys. And so he didn't have the support of his friends and his support network, and he was surrounded by the cult. And so in today's terms, they planted him, kind of overwhelmed him, and then began the process of burning him or crucifying him.